A multitude of high-level basketball players pulled out of the NBA draft last week, but it doesn't seem like Carolina's going to pursue any of them. I'm bummed.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Monday, June 3rd, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and you're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Big shout out to all of you everydayers out there, as well as all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. So glad you're all here. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Coming up on the show today, we got to talk about the baseball that happened over the weekend. A good start, some up and down, some roller coasters, and there's more to be decided. And so we're going to get to talking about all of that, recapping as well as looking ahead. And also want to kind of talk about some of these basketball players who decided to come back to college basketball for next year. But it seems like Tar Heels aren't going to go after any of them. And that's where we're going to start today. So about a month ago on the show, I kind of looked at a list of 4 players that I wanted to hear about Carolina having a conversation with if they were to pull out of the NBA draft. And here's what, and this was aside, by the way, from Coleman Hawkins and Ugonna Onyenso, and it was before all the Van Allen Lubin news started. Here's the list of the guys I mentioned. JT Toppin from New Mexico, Jamir Watkins from Florida State, Arthur Kaluma from Kansas State, and Trevon Brazile from Arkansas. I was like, I would love to see the Tar Heels have a conversation with any and all of these 4 young men, because I believe that any of them would help raise Carolina's ceiling as well as their floor, I should say. Here's what's crazy. I said, I'd like that to happen if any of them pull out, have a conversation with them. Literally all 4 of them ended up coming back to college, and all 4 are in the transfer portal. But guess what? To our knowledge, to the public knowledge, we have not heard a single word on contact of Carolina with any of those 4 guys. Now, to be fair, JT Toppin has already committed to Texas Tech, so that's not going to happen. With Jamir Watkins, it seems like he's really down to a final 2 of Michigan and St. John's. With Arthur Kaluma, there's not really much on him yet. It's seeming pretty wide open. My pick as of right now is that he'll ultimately go back to Kansas State. They got a lot of good pieces, but there's also a lot of Arkansas noise and news. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up going there because, hello, cha-ching, that's where some money is, which, by the way, right now, because of Carolina's lack of contact or, perhaps unwillingness to pay the bag, is where I think Coleman Hawkins is ultimately going to go. And with Trevon Brazile, I don't think he'll go back to Arkansas. He could. Certainly, they've got the space. Right now, my prediction is that he will end up at Memphis. All of that is, in some ways, kind of aside. What I'm like, in is wishing that the Tar Heels would really look to bring in these guys, all of whom are infinitely talented in a variety of ways. Like Jamir Watkins is so versatile, brings so many different things to the table in a way that I don't think Carolina has. I think JT Toppin ultimately, has 3 years of college left. He does a lot of what Van Allen Lubin does. Probably not quite the shooter yet. But there's a lot to love about JT Toppin. We talked about Trevon Brazile last week and why I'd like to see him. Arthur Kaluma does a lot. I think he would be a great starting 4 for the Tar Heels, in fact. But there's all the conversation about fit and chemistry. And look, here's where I'm at. Those things are critically important. Yes, you want to maintain locker room. You want to maintain chemistry. All of that is important. But I don't believe that has to be sacrificed at the altar of not getting good talent in. I don't believe the trade-off is locker room and not great talent. For my money's worth, to compete at the highest level, you have to get the best talent you can and make dudes compete for their spot. Now look, hear me say this. There are times when you start to vet somebody and there's just a massive red flag, or it's clear and obvious that they're not a cultural fit, or that they're going to mess things up really bad that you don't want to. And so I don't want to touch those guys. I hear that. And maybe some of these guys behind the scenes are that, and we just don't know about it. Right. But the thing is, for me, in this day and age where amateurism has essentially all but died, you almost really have to say, look, we've got to be bigger than locker room pettiness. You're getting paid a lot of money to be part of this basketball team. And so you need to be a professional and do your job. And part of that means getting along with teammates, battling it out. We are putting together the most skilled team on the floor that we possibly can. It's your job to make it happen. It's your job to be teammates, to be good teammates. And if you can't do that, we'll find somebody else who can. But if you can do that and you want to be, part of North Carolina and these things that Coach Davis is looking for, come on, we'd love to have you. Because for me, with this whole roster construction right now of like, no, we've got enough, we're good. Or not that way. Like, no, we don't want to mess with chemistry. I think right now where I'm at is that I don't buy that. I don't think that's a good enough excuse in this era of college basketball to not continue to bring people in. If you can prove to me by what happens on the floor that you can put it all together and make it happen, I'd love to see it. And I would love to be proven wrong about this, right? I would love for Carolina to sit tight with what they got and go off this year. But here's the thing with it for me. Because I'm not even saying that things are necessarily going to turn out bad. They could turn out very well. Thank you very much. Heels could not add anyone else, and it can be awesome. But here's the thing. Those ifs are too many for me right now. Bottom line, the goal is to mitigate risk of injury, and then you don't have enough guys. Risk of what if we aren't talented enough? And so what I'm trying to answer the question, like in fantasy sports, and I know that's me just being a fantasy football general manager or whatever, but one of the critical things that I'm always trying to do is put together a roster that mitigates risk and gives me the best possible chance to win the most fantasy football games, or in the case of the conversation I'm having right now, the most college basketball games. How can you do that? How can you put that team together? And if at the end of the year, that means that there's been a guy that doesn't get a ton of playing time, so be it. That's unfortunately where we're at. And so what I'm trying to do in this conversation is reckon with the new era of college basketball. I'm not yet convinced, and this grieves me, I'm not yet convinced that we can still do business in the, like, hey, everything's all honky-dory, we're all happy, and we're going to bring this together if the talent's not in place. Now, if you can continue to develop and keep guys around and do it that way, awesome. Let's make it happen. But I would like to see going after more of these high-level NBA type talented guys that are deciding to come back to college basketball. And if that means a guy gets displaced a little bit, I think you just got to say tough, right? Like, that's what I do to my kids. I set my batting order for my little league baseball team. My son is not one of the best hitters on the team, and so he hits 7th or 8th in the lineup. And I've literally told him, if you want to move up in the lineup, you got to hit more. And he got to hit the other day, so we moved up a spot. That's sports. That's what we do. So I say keep talking. Bring in So at least one more. That's still where I'm at. I'd love to hear where you're at. Are you with me on that, or do you disagree? Do you think it's doable? I know there's a lot of back and forth between the whole Carolina fan base on it. And so you hear me working this out in real time alongside of you. And I guess that's part of it too, is we just don't know what to make of this day and age fully yet because we're just a couple years into it. And because there's no um, there's no legislation on it and what it all is and what it all means. So we keep looking. But for now, that's where I'm at. I want to talk to guys like these guys that are coming back to college. If it means paying them, pay them. Let's get them in. Let's have the most talented team we can. That's a team. Now, Sunday's baseball game against LSU unfortunately didn't turn out how we wanted, despite multiple great opportunities late in the game. But even still, it's been a very exciting roller coaster weekend for the Diamond Heels. We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about LinkedIn, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just some job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So that means if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing a ton of hats and just might not have the time or ability, resources, whatever it is, to hire well. So they're constantly finding ways to make this process easier for you. They even launched recently a new feature that helps you write job descriptions. Just another way they're trying to make the job quicker, the process quicker for you. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Update on the Diamond Heels, who were in regional action this weekend at Boshamer Stadium. The Bosch, remember, the 4 teams come in. Carolina was the 1 seed, number 4 overall national seed, followed by LSU, and then Wofford, and then Long Island. We're going to start on Sunday because that's the most recent action and the most important of what's happened. On Sunday, Carolina loses to LSU, who was facing their second elimination game of the day, 8-4. You might or might not be aware of this. This is just the third time all season that the Tar Heels have lost at the Bosch. Now, when you look at that 8-4 score on paper, you might say, boy, that was kind of a blowout, wasn't it? But I'm telling you, if you didn't watch the game, the Heels were right in it and had a ton of chances late and sort of capitalized, but couldn't fully capitalize in the same way that they did on Friday night. And we'll get to that in a minute. Part of the big issue on Sunday was this umpire strike zone was just inconsistent. It was wide. He was given at least an extra ball's width off the plate outside and given down a little bit. And then it changed as the game went on. He tightened up late in the game. It was the batters, and it was both ways. Let's be fair. But I was obviously mostly watching the Carolina batters, who did a pretty good job of keeping their head about him. But Stevenson got upset one time. Was it Casey Cook got really upset one time because at some point that just boils over where it's like, dude, come on, you're really screwing us up here. Because I know some of you are going to say like, that's not that big a deal. It messes at bats up, man. It really does, because you get to a 2-0 count and you leave a pitch away and you think, oh, that's good. I don't need to swing at that. And it should be 3-0, but instead it's 2-1. And I'm just telling you that the psychological difference in those two counts is massive. And so there's that. But all that said, Carolina still had a ton of chances. The game started off pretty bleak. LSU got a 2-run bomb in the bottom of the first. LSU's Hurd, their pitcher, was perfect through 3 2/3. Perfect again in the 5th. Carolina did string together a couple hits in that 4th inning to push their first run across, and that made it 3-1. But then immediately, bottom of the fourth, LSU strikes back for 4 more to make it 7-1. Got a home run a little bit later to make it 8-1. And it was like, good grief. This game's getting out of hand. Do you just, throw a sacrificial lamb out there on the mound and make him eat innings? But then, as we get to the last 4 at-bats, Carolina loaded the bases in 3 of those 4 innings, and in the other had 2 guys on base. And we're able to get 3 of the runs back, but just couldn't get over the hump. And it was disappointing to not be able to fully capitalize as they've done so many times this year. 6th inning, bases loaded, 2 outs. Gavin Gallagher, who has had an amazing weekend, by the way, the freshman at third base, struck out. But Carolina did get 1 back in that inning, making it 8-2. 7th inning, bases loaded, 2 outs, did push a couple runs across, but then Asuna popped out to end the inning. 8th inning, 1st and 2nd, again, 2 outs. That was the thing. It just kept being 2 outs. Here comes Vance Honeycutt to the plate, who just hadn't really done anything at the plate in this game, and launches the first pitch, but down to left field, just went a little bit foul. He hooked it, but that would have made it 8-7 had that gone. And then at the end of the bat, he's rung up on, I wrote questionable here in my notes, but this pitch was both out and down. I mean, there's nothing. He could have hit it, but it would have been a ground out. And it just, again, and that was an example of the umpire really, really taking the bat out of a batter's hands. And then in the 9th, again, bases loaded, 1 out. Stevenson's coming up, and it's like, oh man, let's just get 1 or 2 across here. Unfortunately, he strikes out, and then up comes Mr. Grand Slam himself, which we'll get to in a second. Gavin Gallagher just barely gets under a ball that would have been a game-tying grand slam. It was warning track. The power was behind it. His launch angle just got a little too up under it. Popped it up just enough where it couldn't get out over the left field fence. Ball game. That's it. So I know it was disappointing in totality, but what I appreciated about this game was that Carolina continued to fight. They didn't get down on themselves. They kept putting together good at bats. They started stringing together better defensive innings. And there were some mental mistakes and a Vance Honeycutt error that led to some of the issues with LSU scoring earlier in the game. And quite frankly, the last several innings of the game, Carolina was the better team and gives themselves some momentum. I think a lot of people are going to say LSU has the momentum right now. I thought Carolina took the momentum back towards the end of this game, and hopefully we'll be able to ride that. I know they lose the game, and so that feels like some momentum, but I think the Tar Heels are in a good spot. The issue is they just couldn't get the big hit. On Sunday. 12 guys left on base, just 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position in this game. In fact, I think both of those hits went to D'Onofrio, and so really good stuff there by him. And so here's the other thing, my takeaway from both Saturday's game against LSU and Sunday's game against LSU. There are too many LSU fans in the stands. Carolina got to do work tonight. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's go back to Friday quickly, though, and Saturday, and just a quick look there. Carolina beats Long Island on Friday 11-8, and this was a classic play all 27 outs. I've talked about this a lot. This has been one of Coach Forbes' mottos this year. But with this lineup and what they can do, until another team gets that 27th out like LSU did on Sunday, where they were breathing a sigh of relief, I'm just telling you right now, you've really got to earn 27 outs against this team. And here's what I loved about the win over Long Island that seemed in doubt at the very end. That win was made possible in part by the extra innings lost to Wake Forest in the ACC tournament. You might recall that as things were going in the extra innings, Carolina had a chance, multiple chances, I should say, and Gavin Gallagher was one of the ones that didn't come through. But boy, did he on Friday night with that walk-off grand slam. I mean, you just don't see that. And then it was all over social media all weekend long. Great stuff. But what was cool for Gavin Gallagher is he missed that opportunity against Wake Forest. Early in the game against Long Island, he had an error at third base. But then he just kept making up for it all game long. And it wasn't just the grand slam. He hit a solo bomb in the fourth inning to cut the LIU lead to 1. Top 6, he had a heads-up defensive play where Long Island had a runner at third. Ball hit to him. And instead of just assuming that he needed to go just take the out at first, caught that the runner was too far off the bag and was able to go tag him and cut down the lead runner and end that threat in that way. Still had to get another out, if I remember correctly, but really helping your case there. And then in the bottom of that same inning, he hit a double to tie the game at 3. And then I think he scored one of the other runs that the Tar Heels scored there in the bottom of that inning to make it 5-3. And so you just love to see Carolina battling as they did against Long Island. You know, Carolina had taken that lead in the bottom of the 6th, made it 5-2. But then, unfortunately, the way this goes, similar fashion to what happened against Wake Forest, LIU is down to their last out and their last strike. But then they get a double to tie the game. And then an intentional walk and then a 3-run bomb to go up 8-5. And it's just like, oh, what are we doing? I think a bunch of people gave up at that point because it's top 9, you're down 3. But again, though, 27 outs. You got to get every one of them. I know that a lot of people turn the game off, but Carolina loads the base with 1 out, get a single to cut it to 8-6. Stevenson walks to make it 8-7. And then with 1 out, here comes Gallagher. Boom. Ends. I mean, it was a no-doubter, a great swing. You love to see it. Saturday, then Carolina goes on to play LSU, who had beaten Wofford on Friday. Carolina wins 6-2. This game was scoreless through 4.5. Shea Sprague, he wasn't perfect, but he did a good job getting out of trouble. There was the controversial double play, I guess it turned into, that shouldn't have been called, quite frankly, in the second inning. But then in bottom of the 5th, Vance Honeycutt breaks through, 3-run bomb. I mean, it was just great. And then Carolina, knows that 3 runs aren't going to be enough to beat LSU, so they keep adding on. Vance gets another one, solo bomb this time in the bottom of the 7th, then 2 in the bottom of the 8th. Gallagher single, man, he just comes through again. Madera grounds out, but it's enough to get another run home, and that's it, and that's all. That's all you needed. And Madera, by the way, an unsung hero of that game. Yes, we all remember the controversial double play, but he's the one that started that by making a great stop from letting the ball get to the outfield to turn it. Top 5th, he had a great turn to complete a double play. Coming, I think it was grounder to Gallagher, and Madera is able to turn that double play. But then also, keep in mind, Madera had that bunt single, and that was what kind of set up Vance Honeycutt's 3-run bomb. And so just getting on against a pitcher that Carolina wasn't doing much with really, really helped there. So all of that said, though, Carolina lost on Sunday. And so that means now it sets up a win or go home. Winner takes all. Game 7 tonight, Monday. Another game against LSU. Comes down to that super regional berth on the line. Got to take care of business. I'm going to get you set up for that game in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. Hey, it's winner take all for Carolina baseball tonight, but it's also winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Game 1 of the finals is coming up on Thursday. Celtics favored by 6.5 over the Mavs. There's odds that I looked up on who scores the first basket of the NBA Finals. Doncic has the shortest odds at plus 500. Then Porzingis plus 550. Jalen Brown at plus 600. Jason Tatum at plus 650. And then Kyrie at plus 750. So if you want to get in on that action, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, tonight, 6 p.m., the Diamond Heels against LSU for all the regional marbles anyway, for the opportunity to go on to the Super Regional. By the way, the way things have played out in the region that Carolina is paired with, whoever wins between Carolina and LSU tonight will host the Super Regional. So it's a really big deal. LIU lost. They're eliminated. Carolina beat them Friday, and then they lost to Wofford on Saturday. Then Wofford was eliminated Sunday morning against LSU. They got off to they had a 5-0 lead after the first inning, got 5 runs, but LSU just chipped back, and then just went gangbusters. Kind of what Carolina was trying to do against LSU Sunday night, but just couldn't in the end. So getting set up for this game, it's one of those athlete moments where you just you learn what you need to learn about the lost Sunday. You learn what you need to learn about beating LSU on Saturday, but then you put it all behind you and just, hey, one game, one win to keep moving on. That's what you got to do. And Parks Harbor talked about it in the post game after the lost Sunday, and I thought gave great perspective to what the whole team was doing. He says, quote, I think we were disappointed we lost for about 10 seconds, and then we flipped the switch and realized that we have an awesome opportunity tomorrow, meaning today, Monday, with the home crowd, end quote. And I love that, man. That's great perspective from a young man who's been around and done it, played a couple years at Georgia and now is a Tar Heel, to say, basically, he's already realizing, hey, there's going to be time to dwell on and reflect on these other games. But right now, tunnel vision, get that out of here. We got a big time opportunity tonight, a big time atmosphere at the Bosch where we've only lost 3 times all season, and LSU's coming in. They've had to stave off all these elimination games on Sunday, and now we got to take care of business, and we're going to. Here's where immediately some frustration comes in for me. Carolina was the visitors on Sunday against LSU and will be again tonight for this regional final, game 7, win in advance, lose and go home game. Like, just let the better seeded team be the home team. It's not that hard to do. Where is the reward from being the region? I mean, yes, I know you get to host this at home, but you should get the awards of being the better team. Carolina has proved it all season long. And now in their regional at home against the second best team in this region, the team that's crazy hot right now, oh, by the way, Carolina is the visitor 2 out of the 3 games that they're going to play. That to me is absurd. And the NCAA had previously said, hey, we're going to change this to where whatever game it is, the better seeded team is going to be the home team. But apparently they didn't go through with that. It didn't happen because it's not happening tonight. That rule has to be fixed, but it doesn't do us any favors tonight. And let's remember, LSU is going to have a bunch of people in the crowd. So yes, Carolina will be at home, but it's going to sound, there are going to be times when it sounds like home, but there's going to be times when it sounds like you're on the road. And at least you get your dugout and your locker room and all that. But you're not the home team, man. I can't tell you what a big advantage that is to get to do that. So this is a big miss from the NCAA in a litany of big misses that they have. Got to get this changed going forward. And I know there's probably going to be times in the future when that would go against Carolina. So be it. It is what it is. But Carolina, this team, has earned the right to be the home team in this game. And it's wrong that they're not. So all that said, look, you just leave that to Coach Forbes to worry about. The players, they just got to go out and play a great baseball game, not make mental mistakes. You're going to make physical errors sometime, but you can't make an error between your ears. You got to be locked in on that way. What we learned from Sunday is Carolina got that slow start. LSU hits that 2-run bomb, and Carolina finally gets rolling late, but then they just can't push enough across. Got to get going early. And it's felt like the Tar Heels just haven't been popping quite in the same way recently. Man, I'd love to see them get out of the gate and running here. And you've already proved Saturday that you can beat this team no matter how hot they are. On Sunday, even though you didn't win, you prove to yourself that you can. You can beat this team. You just didn't get the big hit when you needed to get the big hit a couple times on Sunday. But you can win this game easily. Sorry, I shouldn't say easily. I just mean like there's a good percentage chance that you can. Who's going to pitch? That's the big question as you get into the fourth game of the weekend. And again, I've said it multiple times, but moments like this is where it really hurts that you don't have Jake Knapp and you don't have Folger Boaz, because then you could start Aiden Howe in this game, or Shea Sprague could be in this game, whatever it needed to be. But you've also got a multitude of guys, like Peterson, who started off the year as a starter. Maybe he's your starter. Well, our guy Michael Coe tweeted from the press conference that he said Scott Forbes' mom on UNC's pitching plan for Monday. He quoted Coach as saying, "All our horses, they'll be ready." And I went back and read through the transcript again, and Coach Forbes was even pushed on this again. He said, even when pushed, same response: "All our horses, they'll be ready." Translation: I'm not revealing my pitching plan to you for this game. I don't want to tip anything to LSU and give them an advantage, and nor should he. And so that's where it is. Typically, a win-or-go-home situation, whether it's majors or college baseball, whatever level, is an all-hands-on-deck situation, other than guys who are just like out and can't throw. So, for example, Jason DeCaro only threw 65 pitches on Friday. 2 days of rest. On short rest, he should be able to give a couple innings today. I don't know that he'll start, but if you need DeCaro to go 3 or 4, and depending on how many pitches he needs, I wouldn't be surprised if they look to him. Now, there are 3 guys from the staff that I'm interested in that I think either are definitely unavailable or probably unavailable. The one that is definitely unavailable to me, despite what Coach Forbes said, is Shea Sprague, who threw 93 pitches on Saturday. I don't think you're rolling him out there on 1 day's rest at all today. And then 2 more that are potentially unavailable, and we'll see what happens. But Dalton Pence threw 32 on Friday, 27 on Saturday. And I know that that's still just 59 pitches, but when you heat it up both those days, you get into game mode, that takes that's more than 59 pitches of toll on you. And so I'm interested to see. I would think maybe he could give an inning or 2 if needed, but just watch for that. And then Connor Bover threw 42 on Sunday. So curious to see how his arm is feeling today on Monday as well. Other than that, though, I think legitimately Carolina should be able to use anybody they need to out of the pen. So again, exciting opportunity. Got to take advantage, get ahead early, get the bats going. That starts right out of the gate with a disciplined at bat from Vance Honeycutt, where he needs to do the role of a leadoff hitter, right? We know that Vance will chase a lot of times. We need contact. Get on base, get some things going. You got some great dudes coming up behind you, and that's it, man. Trust to just keep passing it down the lineup. Let's get guys on base and let's get it rolling. Now, quickly looking ahead, if Carolina should win, the Chapel Hill Regional is paired with the Tucson Regional, where Arizona was the 13 national seed, and the second seed in the region was Dallas Baptist. Dallas Baptist was the team out of that region that scared me the most. But here's the thing. Arizona lost their first 2 games. Dallas Baptist got eliminated in the first game on Sunday. And so it was down to West Virginia and Grand Canyon. West Virginia wins on Sunday night, so they advance. And so West Virginia is the team coming out of that regional. So we already know if Carolina moves on to the Super Regional, they will be hosting West Virginia next weekend. All right. That's where we're at with baseball. Man, it's so exciting. It's so fun. It is going to be nerve-wracking tonight for this Game 7. I hope you'll be tuned in. I know that I will. Hey, great start to a new week. Fun conversations. I'm curious what your thoughts are on what we talked about with basketball earlier and talking to some of these guys. If you're not subscribed to the show, very easy to do both on audio and video. We'd love to have you. Just hit subscribe. Search for the show, Locked On Tar Heels. Come join us. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, love to have you there too. The link for it is in the show notes. Just click on it. Come join us. It's free. Come for the Tar Heels. Stay for the community. It's a great place to be. In fact, speaking of which, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, hopefully talking about a super regional berth. But until then, peace.